Right, intro to this video then. Joe's classic Range Rover, 4.6 Merlin cylinder heads, hot wire injection system, converting over from V-belt front end to the Serpentine intermediate front end. So I'm going to cover a bit of that in this video and hopefully get the rest of the engine built up. Here we go. Injector upgrade then. The original injector on the Lucas hot wire system has got just a single jet really coming out of it, one hole there. These injectors are also used on GEMS engines in the P38, and if you're in America you've got them in the Discovery 1s later on the 4-litre model, and over here they're used on 3.5, 3.9, 4.2 and TVRs on 4.3s and 4.5s and the 5-litre. This is an upgrade, plugs straight in place of the original injector, goes straight in place, the same connector for the electrics. However, if I can get it to focus, maybe there are 4 holes. I'm not going to be able to get this to focus. Let's try standing it up. There are 4 holes, so you get more of a spray pattern than a jet of fuel. So that really helps with fuel atomization. The injectors on the Thor engine in the P38 Range Rover or Discovery 2 were, they weren't this injector, but they were a 4-hole. On my twin turbo vehicle, I run a slightly different version of the injector, which has a 12-hole, so it's a real fine mist for better atomization of fuel. Yeah, so there's 4 holes in there, which means it's 4 smaller jets. You get a much better spray pattern. Mixing that fuel with the air is essential. Reason we're upgrading these on Joe's Range Rover behind me is because his fuel economy was awful, and into single figures on a cruise. So we looked at. He asked if we could get these injectors checked and cleaned. But the reality is, by the time you've done that, you might as well actually go to the cost of just fitting these injectors, knowing that they're actually an upgrade. They're going to give you a slight gain. The gains are very small percentage-wise because of the vehicle we're talking about and its weight and transmission losses of power and efficiency. However, it's still a gain, and it's a known injector, brand new, rather than reworking and cleaning an older injector, potentially finding that one of these is bad and having to source another second-hand injector and then making sure it's matched to the set, etc., etc. So it was the logical step without spending a massive amount of more money over and above having these cleaned. Okay, so I've just fitted these other couple of injectors up. What I'm interested to see is if the YouTube installation technique works on Rover V8. So I've seen it done before. Let's see. Boom. Hey, it worked. Let's see if we get lucky twice. So here we go. Let's see if we get lucky twice. It's only gone and happened twice in one video. YouTube luck, look at that. I'm not going to try it anymore. I'm going to save that YouTube luck of installing parts for something really tricky. Right, so next thing, starter motor. And then I could have put that on before I put the engine in, but for some reason, unbeknown to me right now, I didn't. So that's going to go on. And then I'll probably tackle the exhaust manifolds, popping them on. And yeah, I'll try and video a little bit of that, probably speed it up, so you don't have to go to the torment of all the doesn't quite align properly and all that malarkey. So while I'm fitting these exhaust manifolds up, I just thought I'd touch on the poor fuel economy of this vehicle again as well, because obviously just replacing the injectors, I'm not expecting that to magically fix the fuel economy, unless of course the injectors were the fault. But the reason we were doing the injectors at this point is because I don't want to find out later that the injectors were faulty, and for reasons I explained, it made sense to change the injectors now. I have found a few other things with the vehicle when I was sort of taking it to bits and looking at things.
as to why fuel economy might have been down. Some of the things are, although lambda sensors are installed, the ECU is not actually looking at them. It's got the wrong tune resistor installed. It also does not have an ECU chip to fuel a 4.6 engine. It's still on an original ECU chip, which would be for a 3.9 or maybe for a 4.2, but more likely for a 3.9. So that's another reason as well. It's also got still on the original hot wire airflow meter. There's potential there for that airflow meter to not be any good. So we are also going to be converting this over to a Bosch 4.6 airflow meter in combination with a Tornado ECU chip that's obviously mapped for that airflow meter. So yeah, there are other things we're doing to tick all the boxes off to make sure we get the fuel efficiency, well, known inputs and outputs from the ECU. So we should get the fuel efficiency where we know it ought to be, which is up in the high teens on a cruise. So yeah, that's really. I just wanted to say that and thought, rather than playing you some funky music over the top of me installing exhaust manifolds, you'd much rather listen to me ramble on some more. That's that exhaust manifold on then. I'm reasonably confident you don't need to see me do all that again in high speed for this side. So yeah, I'll just get that done off camera. That's both exhaust manifolds on then. This one is a little bit more fiddly, a little bit less space to work in between the chassis rail and the cylinder head and engine block, but it's on, everything's tightened up, and the U-clamps are on the Y-piece. So next up is installing the radiator and starting to figure out my bottom hose and the oil cooler pipes as well. A little bit more progress then. Radiator is in. Bottom hose has worked out quite nicely. Ordered an intermediate Serpentine hose, but one with joiners in. I don't normally like lots of joins, but it enabled me to cut these pipes shorter and also rotate things how I wanted them. So this is going up to the header tank, and then this will be the return from, well, originally the heater matrix, which will now be the vaporizer. So I'm actually going to, that'll come underneath this bracket, up past the distributor over to the vaporizer, and then water outlet here will come round via one of the original metal pipes into the heater matrix to vaporizer, vaporizer from here down to the bottom hose on this pipe here. So that's worked out nicely. Power steering bracket, Serpentine or intermediate Serpentine bracket here. Originally would have had 3 bolts going through the main bracket that houses the pump here. However, the Merlin cylinder heads, this 3rd bolt here has no material to go into. There's nowhere for the drill and tap to go into. So one of the modifications we actually did to these heads at RPI was to put an M8 hole here and thread it in readiness for this. So it just means drilling a hole in the bracket for a bolt there, and then welding on a stud, M10 stud, so that this where is it, bracket here slides over there, and then the bolts do up, and that's there. So that'll get a washer and nut on it after the pump gets installed. Job done. Ticking things off. Oil cooler pipes. These are the original oil cooler pipes. Went down to the V-belt, which we'd had a sandwich plate between the oil pump base and the filter. So as you saw, I think with the timing cover on the engine, I've got some AN-10 fittings on there. And I've not piped it up. I've got the return hose here onto the bottom of the timing cover. The reason I've not continued that is because I've got straight fittings on 90 here, but I haven't got any 45s in stock, and I think this is going to work out much nicer and keep the pipe where I want it routed with a 45 on there. So I've ordered a couple of 45s and just another length of pipe as well, because I want to make sure I've got enough pipe to do it nicely. So that's on order. Probably will be in the following video to this one, depending on how short I cut this video. So air conditioning pump will mount here, alternator will mount here, The alternator does kind of encroach on the fuel temperature sensor on the V-belt fuel rail. I could have changed this over to a Serpentine fuel rail, which would have had that sensor over here, just lengthened the loom. I haven't. Workaround normally is to just fit 2 small female terminals on here so they come straight out rather than having the big plastic plug, which is more than adequate to do the job properly. So just a small thing to overcome there, but it's no biggie at all. So I'll show you that when we get to there. So yeah, coming on nicely. Well, that's enough done for this video, I think. So oil cooler pipes are done. However, I think I'm well, I've got 2 options here. They do get closer than I'd like to the exhaust manifold. There's space, I can wiggle my hand through there. So I could use some heat insulation tube to go over these. I may redo the pipes. I may shorten these metal tubes here to bring these pipes this way. I was cautious of doing things like that because of where the air conditioning pump sits. Sometimes you have to do these things and then take a second approach. So where might be a case of getting the engine fired up, the camshaft broken in, and then having a play about with these, just because I'd like to get the engine up and running. But anyway, yeah, so as I explained, coolant pipes are done. I haven't tightened this one up yet, which goes to the vaporizer. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to run this over and above the rocker cover, below it. Injection wiring loom, that's now plugged into the injectors. I'm not plugging any of the emulators in for the LPG yet. And in fact, what I'm going to do, rather than having the double piggyback plugs on the injectors here, which just bulks out all the wiring down here and makes the engine look a little bit more messy, I'm going to splice them into the loom back here. Just want us to try and neaten things up. I'm also going to get some insulation, heat insulation tube for the fuel pipes that come up here. Originally, the original pipes had insulation on them, because obviously they're close to the original manifold. This manifold does come out further than a cast one, so going to do that. That should have been done really, but it wasn't, so yep, we'll do that on this reinstall. You've got the wiring to tidy up down the front here. So this is the section of loom that comes over from the passenger side wing. So it's got the coil connections on it, and the alternator connections, which originally on the V-belt engine was here. The alternator's over here now, so just got to lengthen the engine RPM sensor, the white grey wire, and the alternator light, charge light, the brown yellow one. Lengthen them to reach over there. The main feed that goes down to the starter motor, the main battery positive, I'll just loop that back over to here. Oil pressure sensor, temperature sensor, they're not going to be an issue, those wires. So yeah, that's where I'm going to end this video. I'm cautious of having these videos too long, and that gives me more chance to ramble. Bit of feedback from the last video. Thank you very much for the likes and comments. Been a bit of feedback from one of my friends as well, who runs a business, and I agree with what he's saying. I could format these videos and look to kind of do a bit of a platform and program and see where it goes. At the moment, for me, this is more just a blog or a vlog. So yeah, and I know a few of you like to see what I'm up to, and that's it really. I've just put a lathe in my other shed. I've got a little CNC mill in there, so I'm probably going to do a few little videos on bits and bobs I make on those as and when I need to do it. It's not all going to be Rover V8 based. Yeah, I just I'm trying to motivate myself a little bit with doing these vlogs, so that's all these are for me at the moment. I'll see where it goes. Thanks for tuning in. Hit that like button, subscribe. Apparently I've got to say that, and yeah, I'll catch you on the next one.